Hello, everybody. My name is Diana. I'm web accessibility expert. And recently I wrote an article about the difference between links and buttons and how important it is to code the elements according to their role, behavior, and not just for visual styling. And I understand that many of us, we still think that, okay, they're all interactive elements. What is the difference between like coding them as the buttons or as links? Anyway, they just provide us somewhere or do some action. But actually the difference is for the users who use assistive technologies, because through the buttons or links, they navigate the website and they are announced differently. Also, for example, buttons can be disabled while links cannot be disabled. Buttons also can be activated using the keyboard via the space key, but links cannot. These are just small things, but the most important question that you need to ask in order to determine whether you need to code element as the button or as a link, it is just one question. Does it change URL? Does it take the user somewhere else? Or we just stay on the web page? So if this element, this interactive element, when we're clicking on it, it brings us somewhere else and URL is changing, then it's a link. If there is no change of URL, we are staying on the web page. Well, for example, submitting a form or opening some hidden information, then it's a button. And this is the big difference, and we need to be coded properly according to their behavior. So for the link, in order to code such interactive element properly, we need to use a element, or for example, role equals to link. And it's important to have attribute href to show the destination where this link will provide us. They are always connected to the navigation, so it brings us somewhere. While for the buttons, we need to use the element button, or for example, role equals button, in order to show that there will be some action. We will do something by clicking on this interactive element. And I understand that in theory, it's not so easy to understand, and I received many comments for my article asking, okay, in this case, is it a link or a button? I have problem understanding whether here it's a link or a button. So in this video, I want us to go through the website, like for example, Amazon, because it's a big corporation, so they should be careful about using properly link elements, button elements, and we will see if they use them properly, and in each example, how is it coded? Is it coded right? If no, then why it should be coded differently and how to do it. Okay, so I will just open, I will share with you my screen. I hope that it's gonna work. Okay. Yes, I hope that you can see it. So now we're on the main web page of Amazon. And here we see that there are a lot of elements on the main web page. I would even say a little bit too many, but I understand that they have many categories. They sell almost everything. And so we see a lot of links and a lot of buttons, at least visually. And now we will see whether they mean, they really have the behavior of what they mean, of what they're coded with, and also whether the visual styling correspond to the way how they behave. Because HTML semantics, it's not about the behavior, like it's more about the behavior than about visual styling. It is really important. And we will go, for example, like this is the menu. You can see it's in Swedish language because automatically Amazon redirects you to where you are. So the language of the country where you are located. And for me, it is Swedish language. So for example, here, we can see that, like, I will just try to click on the menu element and see where it's gonna lead. So it opens another web page. You can see that URL changed and it brought me somewhere. So it should be a link because it's connected to navigation It has all the elements. It was this one, right? I will just double check because I want to be sure. So now we will open inspect and check how it was coded. I'll just move here the image. Okay, so here we see that yes, it's coded as a link. We see a element, we see href attribute with a destination. So we know that when we click, we go here, and it works perfectly. So here I don't see any mistakes. It's great. I'll just put down in order to see the code properly. Now we see here that there's a banner, there's a carousel with the banners, the images with information. So they have some prime days, some interesting offers. And here there's a button. It's clearly a button because when we click on it, the arrow to the right is just moving the images in this carousel so that we can control what we see. Like, okay, we finished reading and we're moving to the next image. It's a button because we stay on this web page. The URL doesn't change when we click on it. So it should be coded as a button. Let's check if it's coded as a button. So I clicked inspect. No, it's not coded as a button. And actually, this is a very typical example of semantic mismatch because it's coded as a link, but has a role of a button. You can see it here on the right that that's the problem. And we also have another mistake here in the same line of the code. href is equals to literally nothing, like it doesn't have meaningful navigation. So we have three problems, like the button that is coded as a link. We have a link that has a role of a button. So they try to masquerade this element and make it behave like a button instead of just simply code it as a button. And also it has attribute href, but it doesn't lead anywhere. So this is triple mistake, and here we see that no, it is wrong. Here, if we go, like, for example, okay, we see different banners. So let's, for example, check this banner. Because this is an image. Well, sorry. First, we will just try to click. So what happens if I click? Okay, so it leads us to another web page. URL changed. So it's a link. So we need to see a element. Let's check if it's really coded this way. So they told me that it's a video, but I'm not sure that this is a video. Was it? I'll just do it again, inspect, because it's an image, I think. It's a poster. Yeah, so it's div element, which actually is non-semantic. So we see here multiple problems about this element. First, we don't see a element. So this is definitely a link because it brings us to another web page. It changes URL, but it's a div element with tab index -1 and area disabled equals false, which means that it's not possible, it's not acceptable for the keyboard navigation. This is a very big mistake. So first, the users don't see that it's a link and it leads somewhere. And second, they are not even capable of clicking it with the keyboard. So these are multiple problems. It should be coded as a element with an image. Like I can see that here it's written as a style background image with the URL, but this is a wrong way of doing it. So this should be changed, and the attributes that added here, they don't help web accessibility of this element. Okay, so we took a look at this banner. Now I see that this is, for example, there's a button, log in. So I think it's to log in. And it really looks like a button. You can see, like, I definitely visually, I recognize it as a button. So what happens when I click on it? It changes URL. We see that it opens a web page to log in. It changes URL, so it's connected to navigation. And in this case, it should be coded as a link, but it's definitely looking like a button. So let's take a look. So this element is coded as a link, and this is good. I can explain you why. Even though it looks visually as a button, it's coded properly as a link because it brings us somewhere else, it changes URL. And as I mentioned a little, like several minutes ago, HTML semantics is all about the behavior of the element and its meaning, and not about visual styling. So even if it looks like a button, if it's coded properly according to its role, then it's good. So here it's a very interesting example, I think, because you might think, oh, it looks like a button, but it behaves as a link, so there's a mistake. No, if it's coded properly. The most important is to code it properly because we are doing it for the users who use assistive technologies, and they don't really care about how exactly visually it is styled. The most important is that they can click on it, they can navigate through this, it's interactive element for them. That's the most important thing. So here it's a good example, even though it's very interesting. Let's try to take a look at one of the images that represent sections. For example, here. So if I click on this image, what happens? So I go to another web page, opening different section. So it also changed URL. And in this case, it should be coded as a link. Let's check if it's truly coded as a link. So I'm opening it. Yeah, but it's a div element. So again, it's non-semantic. And I see here, so it's image with the alt attribute and with the src attribute, but I don't really see a link. So we don't have a proper coding of this element. We absolutely, even if it's image and you want to use some more complicated, more complex coding for it using div with a special class, it has to have a element to be coded as a link properly because it behaves like a link. Trying to use different structure, to use complex coding, this makes your code much heavier and much harder to understand for assistive technologies. And so it makes it much harder for the users who use assistive technologies to understand your website. And that's not what we want to achieve. We want for all the users to have equal access and to make understanding of what you provide for them as easy as possible. So this is a wrong way of coding elements. There should be definitely a element, and we need to have href attribute providing the proper link so that screen readers, they can announce it as a link. And like this, we can use it properly with the screen reader. Okay, so I will just stop sharing the screen. So we took a look at several examples on Amazon website, and I hope it was interesting because each example was different. We took a look at the menu element, arrow to scroll, the banner, the button, actually the link that looked like a button, but it was coded properly, and an image of the section. And mostly it was like two of them, they were coded properly, but three elements contain mistakes with their coding. And we just actually started, I didn't even scroll down, so I would say that there are many mistakes about understanding the difference, what is the link and how it should be coded and what is the button. But it was interesting to take a look at it, and I hope that you also enjoyed it. And please write me in the comments if you would like to take a look at another website, another example, and to see what are the problems with this website and whether links and buttons are coded in the right way. Okay, thank you very much. See you soon.